Now, I want you to think about this. Listen, if God's wisdom is as high above mine as his power is above mine, do I really think that I can immediately perceive every purpose an all-wise God might have for everything? You know, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. We imagine a God of omnipotent power, but with a brain no bigger than ours. A God with huge universe-moving muscles and a teeny tiny head. It's ridiculous. The problem with skeptics like Ehrman is that they have exalted themselves and their wisdom, and they have diminished the wisdom of God. Sometimes the suppression is more subconscious than that. It's just that our hearts are disposed to self-glorification and self-rule, and so we resist anything that challenges that. Think of it the way that people's biases affect how they interpret evidence. You ever notice how Republicans and Democrats can look at the exact same evidence, exact same situation, and come up with two totally different interpretations? I mean, it's entertaining. I just love flipping back and forth between MSNBC and CNN and Fox News and just watching. And, you know, so you got something happens, and you got Democrats seeing clear evidence of Republican corruption and Republicans seeing clear evidence of media bias. And you're just like, how are they looking at the same thing? It's because how we interpret evidence is usually related to the biases of our heart. Well, again, what Paul says, Romans 1:18 and 19, he says, our hearts are inclined to suppress the truth and to rule ourselves, and we want to get glory for ourselves, so we resist anything that challenges that, which makes us blind to clear and compelling evidence for our Creator. Tim Keller, a pastor up in New York City, says that when he has college students come home after going away to college students who grew up in their church, and they come home and they say, I stopped believing in God in college. He said, my first question to them is always, how long have you been sleeping with your boyfriend or girlfriend? He says it always kind of throws them off a little bit. He said, but the two almost always go together. He says, what I explained to them is it wasn't that you had an intellectual crisis and quit believing in God. You had a moral crisis, and that changed your mind about God so that you could be comfortable with the lifestyle you preferred. Because it's not that our mind changes our heart, it's that our heart usually changes our mind. Jesus made the same statement on a different front. I've always thought this was fascinating. You ought to write this verse down and just meditate on it for a few weeks. John 5:44, Jesus was talking to a bunch of people who didn't believe, and he said, how can you believe when you receive glory from one another and don't seek the glory that comes from the only God? Now, what's that got to do with intellectual understanding? You see what he said? He said, the reason you can't believe is because you put value on the wrong things. And your love of the praise of people actually keeps you from seeing the truth. It's not a mind problem, Paul says, and Jesus says, as much as it is a heart problem, and a clouded heart is going to miss the obvious things about God that he has written into the universe.